Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Margo in case you don't already know me, and today I'm here to share with you the perfect itinerary for traveling to Croatia if you're traveling on a budget. So I traveled to Croatia about 2 years ago with two of my friends, and I was kind of tasked with planning a lot of the trip. So I was in charge of flights. I ended up booking a lot of the Airbnbs and hostels that we stayed at, and I kind of planned out our entire trip from start to finish while considering, what my friends wanted to do and what I wanted to do. So I took on a lot of that responsibility while I was planning for my trip, and this was something that I put a lot of time into. And even though this happened 2 years ago, I think that what I can offer for you today is very valuable. So today we're gonna go over flights, where I think you should go first and how I think you can get the cheapest flights possible. We're gonna go over the timeline of the itinerary that I think you should follow. And then we're gonna go on to kind of talk about some add-on options, if you're gonna be staying in Croatia a little bit longer. And then I'm gonna also kind of go over the limitations of this itinerary that I'm giving you and some of the things that you might miss out on, just so you're aware that, this itinerary is perfect for people on a budget and people who don't have tons of time, but it might not be exactly what you want for your trip. So if you want to see all of these things, keep on watching. I'll also leave timestamps below to each of these sections if you kind of want to skip through and focus on any of those aspects. So the first thing we're going to go over is flights. If you live outside of the EU, chances are that flying to London first before going to Croatia is going to be your cheapest option. The tough thing with that is that there's a high likelihood that you are going to have to stay in London for an extended amount of time, probably no more than 3 days. But by doing that, you are able to land an affordable price to get to London. And then if you have those flex days to wait out, you can probably find yourself a flight to Croatia for as little as $30. And I think one of our flights from London to Croatia was actually £17. So that might be, I guess that's about $30 Canadian, maybe $25 US. So that is probably what you're gonna wanna do if you have very little money to spend on flights.
I figured some of you would be interested in seeing the exact flights that I took to get to Croatia, so I figured I would just include that here. But I don't want you guys to be overwhelmed, so what I really want to focus on is the pricing that I managed to get from taking all of these flights. So my round trip flights from Saskatoon to London ended up costing me around $760. But what was really cheap and what saved me the most money was my trip from London to Zadar and Dubrovnik to London. Pretty much totaled in at $100, give or take a few cents. So going over to this next page, as you can see, my total flight expenses ended up being about $850, which might sound like it's a bit high, but when you punch in traveling from Saskatoon, where I'm from, to Zadar in Croatia flights, you will see that the average round trip price hits at about $1,600. So by doing these kind of roundabout flights and getting creative with where you land and when you leave, we were able to save about $750. So that's huge. And I do want to make sure that you guys know that we were backpacking. And all that we brought was a carry-on sized backpack, and it was filled to the brim, but we were able to avoid all of our, additional luggage expenses that are associated with going on flights. And I really do want to mention this because if you plan on taking budget airlines, they will not charge you much for the ticket price, but they will charge you obscene prices to bring on large luggage, or even like a 40-pound bag will probably cost you about $100. It's insane. So definitely consider that when you are thinking about taking a budget airline. It might not be worthwhile if you are planning on taking a huge bag because they're just going to upcharge you so much.
So it kind of sucks when you're on a budget because you do have to be flexible with these days, and you might end up spending some time in a country that you weren't initially planning on spending time in. But I think it's really good to make the most of that. You know, I didn't really care about going to London, but I'm so glad that I went, and that was one of my favorite parts about that trip in the end. So definitely consider booking a flight to a large city in Europe, but the flights that you are going to want to book from these large cities to Croatia will probably involve a budget airline such as Ryanair or I don't even remember the flight names, but I'll put them up here. So the list of budget airlines that you'll probably end up flying through are one of these. So one of the really nice things about booking a multi-city flight is that you do not have to return to your original landing point in Croatia. So by landing in Zadar and then leaving from Dubrovnik, you are eliminating all of that travel time that it would take for you to travel from the south back up to the north. And you're also probably going to get a better ticket price if you have that added flexibility with your days. You can choose, from more days on when you want to leave rather than having to travel back up to the original city that you had landed in. So another reason that I would recommend that you kind of strategize booking your flights this way is that you save so much time just traveling in general. You're going to get to see way more cities, and you're going to feel like you missed out on a lot less of Croatia. So that's really what I want to stress to you, is that you should book a flight to a large city in Europe if you don't already come from Europe, and then fly through a budget airline to get to Croatia. So now let's move on to where we are going to go and where I think that you should stop while you are in Croatia. So I'm going to base this itinerary heavily on my top 5 places that I think you should visit in Croatia. If you want to see that video, I will leave the link up here, and I will also put it in the description bar. So the top 5 places in a nutshell that I think you should go to are Zadar, Krka National Park, Hvar, and Dubrovnik. That works out quite perfectly because Zadar is in the northern part of the country and Dubrovnik is in the southern part of the country. So what I think you should do is either start in the southern part of the country or the north, meaning that you should either land in Dubrovnik or land in Zadar and then work your way in the opposite direction.
So just to kind of give you a visual here, I've created a perfect itinerary number 1, and this itinerary resembles most closely to the trip that I took. So it does include all of the things that I just mentioned were my favorite things about Croatia. It also includes a overnight stay in Split, because I think that makes the most sense when you are kind of going from Krka National Park to Hvar town. You just can't do that in the span of one day. So this itinerary will start with you landing in Zadar. From there, you will head to Krka National Park after a few days. You will then travel to Split on that same day, stay overnight, or an additional few days if you prefer in Split, and then you will take a ferry from Split to Hvar town, and then finally you will take another ferry from Hvar town to Dubrovnik. Alternatively, you can also head in the opposite direction by starting in Dubrovnik and then finishing in Zadar. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking this trip. I just think it will entirely depend on the prices that you're able to get for flights, and what makes the most sense in terms of your budget. So for this itinerary, you will fly to Dubrovnik. You will spend a couple of days there, take a ferry to Hvar town, spend some time there, then take a ferry to Split. Either choose to spend the night there or, just keep going. And then from there, you will visit Krka National Park and finally finish up in Zadar. And then that is where you will take your flight home.
This will maximize your ability to see cities and attractions without having to backtrack. And it also simplifies your trip so much because wherever you land, you're heading in the same direction. You're either going north, 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 or south, 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 south. So it makes it easy to remember where you're going, when you're going, and I just found it a lot less stressful. Another reason that I think you should see these 4 places before anything else is that it's very easy to go to these places within a 2-week time frame. So I will give you some added places that I think you could go if you have more than 2 weeks, but I really think that this is kind of a sweet spot for the number of places that you should go and the itinerary that you should take if you don't want to feel super rushed on your trip and you want to have some time to relax and really take in, the places that you're seeing in Croatia. This kind of gives you the opportunity to spend 2 to 3 days in each location, and obviously you can also have that added flexibility. If you don't think that there's as many attractions in Zadar that you'd like to see, you could choose to stay there for just 2 days, and then if you really want to just spend some time in Hvar and relax and spend time on the beach, you could easily spend 3 or even 4 days there and not have to worry about getting to the next attraction and having enough time to see all of the things that you want to see. So now let's go over some of the add-on options that I think you could kind of tack on to this itinerary to really enhance your Croatian experience if you have the extra time, or if you really want to pack in all of the excitement and you don't want to spend 2 to 3 days in each location. These are the places and things that I think that you could do along the way that would fit really well with this itinerary. The first place that I think you could easily stop at if you were interested in checking out a new place is Šibenik. And I'm probably not saying that right, but I'll put the name right here. So Šibenik is only 40 kilometers away from Krka National Park. So you could easily travel from Zadar to Krka National Park, spend the day there, and then travel to Šibenik and spend a night or 2 there before carrying on with your journey. The second place that I think you could easily stop at is Split. And I would actually recommend probably stopping there between traveling from Krka National Park to Hvar, because it's a nice in-between place, and then you can hop on a ferry from there to get to Hvar. There's also lots to do in Split, and unfortunately when I was on my trip, I only spent 1 night there, so I didn't really get that much time to explore, and I really wish we would have spent that additional time in Split. Plitvice Lakes National Park is also not far from Zadar. It is in the opposite direction, unfortunately, of where we are wanting to go. So it is north of Split, but it's still less than 2 hours away from Split, and that is another place that I really wish we would have taken the time to check out. So if you really love nature and you really love national parks in general, definitely consider going to Plitvice Lakes National Park before continuing on with your journey down south. The last 2 places that I think you could easily stop by if you really wanted to are Vis and Korčula. So these places are located on 2 islands not too far from Hvar, between Hvar and Dubrovnik. So if you were planning on, spending less time in Hvar, you could easily take a ferry to Vis or Korčula before traveling to Dubrovnik. Or in the opposite direction, if you're in Dubrovnik and you're planning on traveling to Hvar, you can easily stop in Korčula or Vis before carrying on with your journey. So now I want to address some of the things that I think you are missing out on by taking this itinerary and not giving yourself more time and a bigger budget to spend on your trip. The first thing that I want to address is that this itinerary does not really allow you to see much of Croatia's mainland. Particularly, you are not going to see Croatia's capital, Zagreb, and you're also not going to see some of the northern cities that are, really well known for being beautiful and having lots of cool things to see, such as Rovinj and Pula. So that's the unfortunate part about this itinerary, is you are unfortunately going to miss out on these things, but it would just cost a lot more to go see those things. Let's now go over some of the perks of this itinerary, which I think there are many more perks than there are downfalls. So the nice thing about this itinerary is that it's simple and straightforward. You are only going in one direction. You're either heading north or you're heading south with this itinerary. And I think that's really nice because it's a lot less overwhelming for you to keep track of while you're there, and you don't have to stress as much about, how to get to certain places and how to time things right, because you're just kind of going with a natural flow in one direction. Another super big perk about this itinerary is that wherever you go, you are going to be near a beach. And I personally really liked that because going to Croatia, I really wanted to have that beach time and be by the ocean and have that kind of quintessential kind of vacation feel. We always want to go somewhere warmer with water where we can relax. So that's a huge perk about this itinerary. You are never going to be far from the ocean. Another nice thing about this itinerary is that you get flexibility. So you can spend, anywhere from 1 to 3 days, sometimes even more at these places, depending on what you want out of your trip. So I'm giving you kind of the bare bones structure of what I think you could do, but you can really choose to spend your time where you want to. And this will, of course, be based on your preference and what you want to see. So definitely look into the places that I've mentioned, see if they're for you, see if you want to check them out, and you can go from there. The last really big perk out of this itinerary is that you will not feel as rushed as you might be otherwise, doing another itinerary. Like I said, it's simple and straightforward. You can spend time where you want to spend time and, skip over the things that you don't care about. And I think that is so crucial to having a really good trip and not feeling like you're missing out on the things that you love. So that is it for my perfect itinerary for Croatia. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave me a like. It's supposed to help me out, and I would really appreciate it. Also, please check out my other Croatia videos if you're wanting to learn more about where to go, what to do, and kind of find out what you think you'll like while you go on your trip. And leave a comment down below telling me what you're most excited about for your trip to Croatia. That's all I have for you guys for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye!